The Vikings didn't just raid, they stayed. They built towns, Dublin, York, Waterford, Limerick. They married local women, they gave their children Norse names, and those names, filtered through centuries of English, Irish, Scottish, and Welsh pronunciation, are still being carried today. If your surname is on this list, it doesn't mean you're definitely descended from Vikings, but it does mean that somewhere in your family's history, the Norse world touched your name. And today, I'm going to tell you exactly how. The Viking Age lasted from approximately 793 AD, when Norse raiders first struck the monastery of Lindisfarne off the Northumbrian coast, to 1066, when Harold Hardrada fell at the Battle of Stamford Bridge and the era effectively ended. In those 273 years, the Norse people didn't just raid, they settled. In the north and east of England, the area known as the Danelaw, Norse settlers lived alongside the English population for generations, intermarrying, trading, and passing their names into the local naming tradition. In Scotland, particularly in Orkney, Shetland, Caithness, and the Hebrides, Norse settlement was so complete that the local population became largely Norse. In Ireland, the Vikings founded Dublin in 841 AD, established Waterford, Limerick, Wexford, and Cork, and left a permanent mark on Irish naming traditions. Research from the University of Leicester and the People of the British Isles Project found that parts of northern and coastal Scotland have some of the strongest traces of Viking genetics in the UK. The highest concentration of Viking surnames can be found in Shetland, Orkney, and Caithness. This is where the surnames on this list come from. 20 surnames, their Norse origins, their journeys into the modern world. Number 20, Bond. The Viking farmer hiding in plain English. Bond is one of those English surnames that looks entirely Anglo-Saxon, but Wikipedia's article on English surnames of Norse origin lists it directly as a surname with Norse roots. The name derives from the Old Norse bondi, a free farmer, a householder, someone who owned and worked their own land. In the Viking world, the bondi was the backbone of Norse society. Neither a thrall nor a jarl, but a free man who farmed his own ground and could bear arms. In the Danelaw, the region of northern and eastern England ruled by Danish Vikings from the late 9th century, the word bondi entered the local vocabulary and eventually became the English word bond in the sense of a serf or tied farmer, and simultaneously the surname Bond. James Bond's creator, Ian Fleming, chose the name deliberately for its ordinariness. He may not have known that the name's ultimate root is Old Norse. The most famous spy in fiction has Viking farming stock in his surname. Number 19, Doyle. The Dark Foreigner, Ireland's Viking bloodline, Doyle Irish O'Dubcail, is one of the most fascinating Viking surnames in the English-speaking world because it preserves the Irish description of the Vikings themselves. Dublinia Viking Museum documents, Doyle comes from Dubé, meaning dark in Irish, and Gaul, meaning foreigner. This was what the first Vikings in Ireland were described as, dark foreigners. But the name also tells apart the Norwegian Vikings from the Danish Vikings. The darker-haired Danes were called Dubhal, while the fair Norwegians were called Fingal. In other words, if you are named Doyle, you don't just have a surname with Viking roots. Your surname is the Irish word for Danish Viking. The family that first bore this name didn't adopt a Norse name. They became so associated with the Vikings, perhaps through intermarriage, perhaps through living in Norse-settled territory, that they took the Norse settlers' description as their own. Number 18, Higgins, the name that literally means Viking. Higgins is one of the most remarkable surnames on this list because it doesn't just have Viking roots. According to Dublinia Viking Museum, it literally means Viking. The Irish word for Viking was Huigin, an Irish version of the Norse Vikingr. The O'Higgins family, O'Huigin in Irish, descends from people who were so associated with the Norse world that they took the word for Viking itself as their family identifier. Ambrosio O'Higgins, born in County Sligo around 1720, emigrated to South America and became governor of Chile and viceroy of Peru under the Spanish crown. His son, Bernardo O'Higgins, became the founding father of Chile, leading the Chilean War of Independence and serving as the country's first supreme director, the founding father of Chile, with a surname that means Viking in the Irish language. Number 17, Loughlin, O'Loughlin, the name that means from the land of the Vikings. O'Loughlin, Irish O'Loughlin, is documented by Dublinia Viking Museum as coming straight from words meaning literally Viking. Loughlin was the Irish name for Scandinavia, literally meaning the land of the lochs or the land of the fjords. People who descended from or were associated with Loughlin became known as Lochlanach, Norsemen, or Vikings. The Loughlin family took their name from this connection. They were, in the medieval Irish naming tradition, the descendants of the Viking. Not metaphorically, literally, their family name says they came from the Norse world. The O'Loughlins were concentrated in County Clare in Munster, one of the areas most heavily raided and later settled by Norse forces in the 9th and 10th centuries. Number 16, Thorpe or Thorpe. The Norse farm written into the English landscape, Thorpe and its variant Thorpe derives from the Old Norse word Thorpe, meaning a small settlement, a hamlet, or an outlying farm. It is one of the most direct Norse place name elements in the English language. According to Wikipedia's article on English surnames of Norse origin, Thorpe is explicitly listed as a surname of Norse origin, and the geographic evidence is overwhelming. The English landscape is dotted with place names ending in Thorpe, almost exclusively in the Danelaw region, Yorkshire, Lincolnshire, Nottinghamshire, and Leicestershire, Scunthorpe, Cleethorpes, Melthorpe, Thorpe St. Andrew. These place names were created by Norse settlers naming their farms and hamlets, and the families that lived in and around these places sometimes took the place name as their surname. If your name is Thorpe or Thorpe and your family comes from Yorkshire or Lincolnshire, your ancestors lived in a Viking farm. Number 15, Scarlett, the Norse word that became a color. Scarlet is one of the most unexpected entries on this list because most people assume it refers to the color. In a sense, it does, but the color's name itself has Norse roots. The Old Norse word scarlat referred to a type of expensive cloth, often, but not always red. As a surname, Scarlett derived from an occupation, someone who worked with or traded in scarlet cloth. Wikipedia's list of English surnames of Norse origin includes Scarlett as a surname ultimately tracing to Norse linguistic influence through the cloth trade that moved through Norse-settled English ports. Scarlett Johansson carries the surname. Her father is Danish. Her surname has Norse cloth trade origins. The Viking connection runs through both her family line and her name. Number 14, MacAuliffe, son of Olaf, the Irish form of a Viking king's name. MacAuliffe, Irish Mac-Amlaoibh, is the Irish form of son of Amhlaoibh, with Amhlaoibh being the Irish version of the Old Norse name Olafur, Olaf. Olaf was one of the most common Norse personal names borne by several Norse kings, including Olaf the White, who was one of the first Viking kings of Dublin in the 9th century, and Saint Olaf of Norway, patron saint of Norway. Viking-style documents. MacAuliffe is translated as son of Olaf, connecting the surname to direct Viking ancestry. The MacAuliffe family were concentrated in County Cork, one of the areas of Viking settlement in Munster. Every MacAuliffe today carries the name of the Norse king Olaf in their surname. The Viking is hidden inside the Irish. Number 13, Harold, the army ruler and the last Anglo-Saxon king. Harold is today used primarily as a given name, but it exists as a surname, and its Norse roots are directly documented. The name derives from the Old Norse Haraldr, from Her and Valdr, the army ruler. National World Documents, a classic Viking name carried by leaders like King Harald Hardrada, who famously died at the Battle of Stamford Bridge in 1966. But there is a deeper irony here. Harold Godwinson, the last Anglo-Saxon king of England, killed at the Battle of Hastings in October 1966, bore a name of Old Norse origin. Harold, the man who fought to keep England from the Normans, had a Viking name. His opponent at Stamford Bridge, Harald Hardrada of Norway, also bore the same name's Norse form. 2 Harolds, 1 battle, the end of the Viking Age. Number 12, Collings and Collins, son of Coll, a Norse name in Irish clothing. Collins Irish O'Coilean is primarily an Irish Gaelic name, but Collings is listed in Wikipedia's article on English surnames of Norse origin as a name of Norse derivation from the Old Norse personal name Koller or similar forms. The 2 surnames are distinct in ultimate origin, the Irish Collins and the Norse-derived Collings, but they converge phonetically over centuries of English pronunciation. Michael Collins, born in County Cork in 1990, killed in an ambush in 1922, was the architect of Irish independence. His surname is Irish Gaelic, but the Norse-derived Collings exist alongside it as testimony to how thoroughly the Viking world and the Gaelic world became intertwined in the British Isles. Number 11, MacLeod, son of the Ugly One, the Viking who founded a dynasty. As we covered in our Scottish surnames video, MacLeod derives from the Gaelic MacLeod, son of Leod, with Leod being the Gaelic form of the Old Norse name Leodr, meaning ugly. Viking-style documents specifically, the surname MacLeod has been traced back to a Viking named Leod, who settled in the Scottish Highlands. Leod himself was the son of Olaf the Black, Norse king of Man and the Isles, who died in 1237. The MacLeods are direct descendants of the Norse rulers of the Hebrides. Of all the surnames on this list, MacLeod has perhaps the most directly traceable Viking lineage, a documented Norse ancestor, a documented Norse personal name, and 800 years of continuous habitation at Dunvegan Castle on Skye. Number 10. Watson, son of water, an unexpected Norse root. Watson appears in this list because MyHeritage Wiki documents it as a surname derived from the Old Norse name Vaten, with Vat meaning water in Old Norse. The surname Watson, meaning son of Wat, is primarily interpreted as a patronymic from the medieval given name Wat, itself a diminutive of Walter, but the Norse water connection is documented in the literature. Emma Watson, the actress, carries this surname. Whether her specific Watson line traces to the Norse root or the Walter root is a matter of individual genealogy, but the name's documented Norse dimension places it firmly on this list. Number 9. Thorburn, Thor's warrior, the thunder god in a surname. Thorburn is one of the most directly Norse surnames on this list because it carries the name of the Norse god of thunder in its first syllable. The name derives from the Old Norse Thorbjorn, meaning Thor, the god, and Bjorn, meaning bear. Thor's bear, a compound of two of the most powerful symbols in the Norse world. The Scotsman documents Thorburn as one of the 30 surnames with strong Viking links still found across Scotland. The name is most concentrated in northeastern Scotland and in Orkney, precisely the regions of strongest Norse settlement. If your name is Thorburn, you carry the Norse thunder god and the bear in a single word. Number 8. Gunn, the warrior from the Orkneyinga saga to Caithness. Gunn is one of the most directly documented Viking surnames in Scotland. The Scotsman explicitly states, derived from Gunnar, the Old Norse word for battle or war. Found widely across northern Scotland and Orkney, it's also the name of an old Highland clan with Viking origins. The clan Gunn traces its roots to Gunni, grandson of Sweyn Asleifson, described in the Orkneyinga saga as the ultimate Viking. The Orkneyinga saga is one of the primary historical sources for the Viking Age in Scotland, and the Gunn family appears in it directly. If your name is Gunn, your family appears in a Viking saga. Not metaphorically, the document exists. It names your ancestor. Number 7. Halfdan, Halfdane, the name that says what it means. Halfdan, today surviving as a rare surname, is one of the most historically significant Norse names in the British Isles. The Scotsman documents, from Old Norse Halfdan, meaning half-Dane, a real surname still found in Scotland, possibly referring to someone born of mixed Norse and native ancestry. This is remarkable. The name Halfdan literally describes someone born between two worlds, part Norse, part not. It is documentary evidence of exactly the kind of cultural mixing that produced so many of the surnames on this list. Halfdan Ragnarsson, one of the sons of the legendary Ragnar Lothbrok, was a Viking leader who participated in the Great Heathen Army's invasion of England in 865 AD and became the first Norse king of Northumbria. If your name is Halfdan, you carry the name of a man who was, by definition, the product of two worlds merging. Number 6. Kirby, the church settlement, Norse place name as surname. Kirby is documented by Ireland Before You Die as having origins in northern England from Kirby or Kirkby, which comes from Old Norse kirkja, meaning church, and byar, meaning settlement. The by suffix is one of the most reliable markers of Old Norse place name influence in England. It appears in dozens of English place names almost exclusively within the Danelaw, Grimsby, Whitby, Derby, Selby, Rugby, Naseby. All derive from the Old Norse byar, a farm or settlement. Kirby therefore means the settlement with the church, a Norse place name that became an English surname when families in those settlements took their home's name as their own. The geographic concentration of Kirby as a surname in Yorkshire, Lincolnshire, and the East Midlands, precisely the Danelaw, is the clearest possible evidence of its Norse origin. Number 5. Ormsby and Ormiston, the Serpent's Farm and the Dragon Connection. Ormsby and Ormiston derive from the Old Norse personal name Ormar, meaning serpent or dragon, combined with the Norse words byar, meaning settlement, or tun, meaning farm, the Serpent's Farm, the Dragon's Settlement. National World documents Ormsby as follows: a toponymic name meaning Ormar's Farm, with Ormar being a Norse personal name meaning serpent or dragon. The suffix by was used by Vikings to denote a farmstead or settlement and still appears in dozens of Yorkshire and Lincolnshire place names. The Norse personal name Ormar appears in several Viking sagas. To be named after a dragon, even indirectly through a place name, is to carry one of the most potent symbols of the Norse world in a surname. Number 4. Cotter. Son of Autir, a Viking personal name in Irish form. Cotter is documented by Dokara.com as one of the Irish surnames with Viking origins, from the Norse personal name Otir or Ottar, meaning otter or fearful. The MacLeod family, anglicized as Cotter, were a Hiberno-Norse family of County Cork, descended from Norse settlers who had intermarried with the local Irish population. They held their lands in Cork for centuries. The most famous Cotter in Irish history is Sir James Cotter, from 1689 to 1720, a Jacobite officer executed for his activities against the English crown. His family's Norse descent was still recognized in the 18th century. A Viking personal name, in Irish pronunciation, in County Cork. The Norseman became an Irishman, but the name remembered where he came from. Number 3. Thompson and Thompson. Son of Thomas, but Thomas came through the Norse world. Thompson, and its Scottish variant Thompson, is one of the most common surnames in the English-speaking world, and my Heritage Wiki documents it as derived from the Old Norse name Thormundr. The personal name Thomas entered Scandinavia from Greek via Christian naming traditions. The Norse form, Thormundr, or simply Thomas, was used by Norse settlers, and when their descendants took patronymic surnames, they became Thompson, son of Thomas, via the Norse world. The son suffix itself is a Norse construction. In Scandinavia, patronymics ending in son remain standard today: Eriksson, Magnusson, Halvrsson. When Norse settlers in England began taking fixed, hereditary surnames, they brought the son suffix with them, and it became one of the most productive surname patterns in English. Thompson is everywhere, and its son carries the Norse world's fingerprint. Number 2. Magnusson, Magnus. The Great One, and a Norse king who gave England a law. Magnus and its patronymic Magnusson derives from the Latin word Magnus, adopted into Old Norse as the personal name Magnus. It was borne by several Norse kings, most notably Magnus I of Norway, who died in 1047, known as Magnus the Good. Magnus III of Norway, known as Magnus Barefoot or Magnus Barelegs, died in Ireland in 1103 during a military campaign. He had previously agreed a treaty with King Edgar of Scotland that ceded the Hebrides and the Isle of Man to Norway, any land that could be circumnavigated by a longship. Magnus reportedly had his longship dragged across the Isthmus of Kintyre, steering it himself to claim the whole Kintyre Peninsula. Magnus Magnusson, the Scottish-Icelandic broadcaster famous for presenting the television quiz program Mastermind, bore a name that was entirely Norse on both sides. His father was Icelandic. Iceland was settled by Norse Vikings in the 9th century. If your name is Magnus or Magnusson, you carry the name of Norse kings. Number 1. MacSorley. Son of Sumhairle, the Gaelic form of the Viking who built an empire, we end with the surname that carries the most direct documented Viking lineage of any name on this list, hidden inside a Gaelic form that most people would never recognize as Norse. MacSorley, Irish Mac Sumhairle, Scottish Gaelic Mac Sumhairle, means son of Sumhairle, and Sumhairle is the Gaelic form of the Old Norse name Sumarlitur, literally summer traveler or summer sailor. The Viking who sailed in summer, Sumarlitur, anglicized as Somerled, was a mid-12th century Norse-Gaelic lord who rose to create the kingdom of Argyll and the Isles. He was of mixed Norse-Gaelic ancestry. His name is Old Norse, and his father, Gillibride, was of Gaelic royal ancestry. In 1140, he married Ragnhild, daughter of Olaf the Red, the Norse king of Man. In 1156, he defeated Godred, king of Man, in an overnight sea battle and took control of the southern Hebrides. He's the ancestor of both the MacDonald and MacDougall clans. His name is recorded in medieval chronicles and in the genealogies of some of the most powerful families in Scottish history. Every MacSorley today carries the name of the summer sailor, the Viking who conquered the Vikings' own territory and made it his own. His name survives in Gaelic form, but it is Old Norse at its root. Summer traveler, sea king, Viking. 20 surnames. One story: the Vikings didn't just come, raid, and leave. They stayed, they married, they named their children, and their children's children's children are still carrying those names today in Yorkshire, in County Cork, in the Isle of Skye, in Caithness, in cities around the world. Having one of these surnames doesn't prove you have Viking DNA, but it places your name in a tradition that traces back to the Norse world, to the men and women who crossed the North Sea in longships and changed the history of every island they touched. Research from the University of Leicester found that parts of northern and coastal Scotland have some of the strongest traces of Viking genetics in the UK. If your name comes from those regions and appears on this list, the probability increases, but ultimately the name itself is the evidence, not the DNA. The name has survived 1,000 years. That's proof enough of something. Tell me in the comments, which of these surnames is yours? If this video was worth your time, a like genuinely helps the channel. Subscribe for more deep dives into the bloodlines that shaped history. See you in the next one.